I think this is one of the biggest kind of reasons why this episode was so important, is because loads of people feel this way, and it's bull.
I've got some videos on my laptop. I haven't seen this video in years. It's my first job presenting or doing anything in TV.
I can't wait.
Was at a local TV station called Made in Cardiff.
That we feel like just because we can use it means that we should be good at it instantaneously. And with no other instrument or sport or, I don't know, activity, do we think we just have it immediately? Yeah.
Now people have their phones in their hands all the time, and at the touch of a button, you have access to 4K recording technology, which can be uploaded instantly.
Talent is a really loaded word. How do they make it look so easy?
Who? Them, the
Everyone
people.
else that's better than me. That's literally what I used to think.
Really?
Yeah. It's like everyone else is just born brilliant. They're so confident. They don't have any of these stress responses. They don't have sweat glands.
So natural.
They're so natural. What are some things? Do you get this? Do people say this to you? Because they say it to me now, and I'm in shock.
Oh, darling, plenty. Just can't stop the compliments coming in. No, I do genuinely get stuff. I get. Oh, you're so natural. I get that quite a lot.
Yeah.
I get things like, oh, but you've got such a nice voice. I get that sometimes.
Yes.
Oh, your accent is so nice. I guess that's something I can't really help. But yeah, I get you're so natural. Your accent's so nice. Your tone is really good, and you play around with like how you put inflections and stuff. Oh, you're just so confident. That's one thing I get a lot.
Yeah.
You are just that. You just are. You are that thing.
Yeah.
My dad was a really good public speaker, so I get quite a lot of, you're just like your dad. I get that a lot. And all of that, I think, ties into it almost sounding like it's a natural thing that I've just been born with. I guess some people who realise, oh yeah, you've worked hard at it, or you've done it for, however many years. And also, I've not reached my like point of like ultimate presenting. I'm still developing and like wanting to get jobs and still trying to get gigs and stuff. So it's not like I've made it, whatever that means, by the way. So yeah, I do get people saying, "You're just so natural. It just happens to come to you." Yeah,
I think this is one of the biggest kind of reasons why this episode was so important.
Yeah,
is because loads of people feel this way, and it's bull.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone, I'll put my neck on the line, is just born with confidence. There are so many factors. Your upbringing, how much storytelling is a part of it, how much your schooling. Like, for example, if you go to private school, you'll have things like debate classes and public speaking classes, whereas I don't think we ever had that necessarily as kind of focused in, I don't know what it's called, public or non-public, non-private school.
State schools.
We didn't have that. I get, it's fine for you.
Do you get that?
Yeah.
Really?
It's fine for you. As if
you've got a superpower. Yeah.
And I'm
like superpower, sorry for you. Oh.
Yeah. And if you've listened to our other episode, which is all around, the physiological responses, why does my heart race? Why do I get sweaty palms? All of that sort of thing. You will know categorically that I was not good at this stuff. So much so that my body was failing. Like, this is like the degree that I had to work from being down here to up there. So it's very interesting, isn't it? That people just think, poof, you're just good at this. You came out the womb with a mic.
Absolutely. And it's the stages of competence. And I think people forget that when people are so good at it or so confident at it, when we look at the people who are really talented, they have an art of not only doing it well, but making it look like it's effortless. I think I read this. I can't remember where I read this. It was in a book called Getting Down to Show Business. And I can't remember who the author was. I will try and remember. but it was an awesome, awesome book, and it was one of the first acting books I ever read. And in it said, "Effortless looks flawless."
That's it. I was thinking about that.
Such a cool quote.
Effortless looks
And it does
flawless.
though, but it's the 4 stages of competence where you're unconsciously incompetent, which is where you're not very good, but you don't really know why you're what and if you're any good or not. Then you're consciously incompetent,
Yeah.
so you're not very good and you know it and you're aware of what you're doing wrong.
Yeah.
Then you're consciously competent, where
Yeah.
you are getting good and you know what you're doing right.
But you have
and
to
then,
put a bit of effort in.
Exactly.
It's conscious, yeah.
And the final stage is unconsciously competent, where
Yeah.
you're good, but you don't notice it, or you don't notice what you're
Yeah.
doing. And
Yeah,
I
it's
think
the autopilot.
everyone goes through that arc.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I remember going to drama centre, and that was the first time I heard those terms used, and I was like, "Phew, this is so brilliant." But it's with every skill that we do, right? I find it amazing that the voice is one of those instruments that we feel like just because we can use it means that we should be good at it instantaneously. And with no other instrument or sport or, I don't know, activity, do we think we just have it immediately? We wouldn't go, oh, I'm really, I just was never really good at 500-meter sprints. It's like, well, where's the process between refining your technique? Or, oh, do you know what? I just couldn't play the violin. And people are like, would you ever get any lessons? You'd be like, no, but I really should just be good at the violin.
Yeah.
It's like, no.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like the voice is exactly the same. As there's so much to play with this instrument. And I think we've become quite detached from the instrument, with kind of thought being the most important thing, that we forget that this is actually a beautiful thing to learn how to use. And lots
Absolutely.
of those actors and celebrities have gone to, like, the people who are like, oh, you make it look so easy. Celebrities or public speakers or whatever, we just completely see the finished product as where they've always been.
Yes, I think people actually know that when it comes to public speaking or performing, that people know it takes loads of hard work to get there. But I think what happens is people forget.
Yeah, you don't feel it in the time of watching them, do you?
Yeah.
It's because you don't see it.
Yeah, same with social media. We see people who are really
Yes.
natural at social media. We haven't seen, you spoke about just now about all the hidden stuff, but now introduce things like AI, filters, teleprompters, all the different apps and things you can use to make yourself look better, editing tools to get rid of your ums and your gaps, by the way. That when you're watching a video, there's so much that goes behind doing it. But because it's social media, it looks like you're just walking up in bed. And I'm already this brilliant. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some really funny, talented, quick-witted people on social media who have a seemingly natural way of communicating, but there's so much hidden work. I mean, I learned this when I don't know if people know this, but I did sociology in uni, and one of the first things I learned was the idea of meritocracy, and in the context of education. And everyone believes that when you do grades or go to uni, everyone has the same level playing field, a bit like the American style of seeing things, like we mentioned the other day, that everyone has the same level playing field. And in this country anyway, it's just not true. If you have a certain amount of capital, you can get tutors. I went from a D in maths to an A in maths.
Same.
Purely because of my tutor.
Yeah.
If you are in a house which has loads of books in it, you're more likely to read. If your parents mingle with a certain type of person, you're going to be hearing a certain type of vocabulary. If your parents are teachers, that's going to have a certain advantage. If you live in a certain area, you're going to have access to better schools, maybe more access to the countryside. If you're in a city area, you may have less access to quiet spaces to do homework. Money for textbooks, money for good stationery that's going to last you all year. Are both your parents working? Is it a single parent household? Like, are your parents going to have time to give you clean clothes every day, which is going to give you an edge in school if people are picking on you because maybe your clothes aren't quite up to scratch? These are just like 20 things out of 1,000 things.
Other factors
that will make you a competent, I don't want to use the word competent because that's not necessarily fair, a seemingly competent performer.
Yeah.
And that's what you said just now, in terms of all the hidden stuff.
There's all the hidden stuff, like if you go out and play outside with lots of people when you're young, or even if you go to the pub, and actually the currency between your group of friends is being able to tell a good joke or a good story. And when we did the show in Merthyr Tydfil recently, there was lots of men telling their stories on stage around centered on the theme of mental health, wasn't it? And one like prevailing superpower I felt was their ability to tell stories. And it feels like, yeah, why wouldn't that be the case? Because that's the currency of connection in specifically that area. I think Merthyr is a really brilliant area
I love
for
Merthyr.
storytelling, for making people laugh. It's got a real sort of like lightness in the communication because it's had some really tough times. So of course you've got to band together. So that's an outcome out of an environment. Whereas for other people, it might be that actually the way that they speak very formally might intimidate some other people and be like, wow, that's really eloquent and whatever. But it's their upbringing in a different environment or whatever, you know. So it's, I think it does, we underestimate the knock-on effects that go on. Or if you went to like, say, I don't know, you're part of a rugby club or a team or something, the way that you communicate with each other has a certain, there's certain currencies, right?
Yeah, and that's not to say that people who have, say they have all their ducks in a row and they went to the best school, best parents, best rugby team, whatever. That's not to say that those people don't have to work hard also to get to where they want to be.
Yeah.
And also, you can't help your upbringing or where you come from, whether that's an upbringing of affluence or an upbringing which is not affluent. You can't help how you're brought into the world. So I don't want people to think, oh, just because I'm from a certain background, I'm
going to have a disadvantage, because actually it might be your superpower.
Yeah, or the other way. Like,
Yeah,
I don't think you
exactly.
should necessarily feel guilty if your parents were teachers. Great. Like, you feeling guilty about that, I don't know how much that's going to help a situation. But I do think recognising it is probably quite a good thing to do. And I don't think people sometimes do that enough. I think we also live in, let's face it, a little bit of a nepotistic world, which I think some people don't necessarily. I mean, the term Nepo baby is all over the place.
Yeah.
You know, where celebs is Annie Mac was speaking about this on I think she was speaking to Greg James and I think it was Nick Knowles. And she was saying, I'm not going to do her accent because I can't do it. She said their child is going to be such a Nepo baby because they bought them, they were like 4 or 5 years old, and they bought them a little DJ set. And they're obviously going to turn into a DJ.
That's what I'm saying. Is like your environment almost primes you for something sometimes. And I think I hadn't thought about this. So this is I'm sort of offering myself into this, and probably the same similarly with you. Like, my parents owned their own business and ran their own business, and I used to go on the pie van with my dad, like on weekends sometimes, and I would see how he'd talk to customers and how he'd just subtly kind of shift his approach or focus on different things because he knew it was interesting to them. And we'd always leave and he would have built rapport with them somehow. And I think that rubbed off on me. I was like, that is a superpower. How can I do that? Or, you know, I really struggled in school. So I was always the class clown because I just couldn't focus. So I was like, I've got to make a joke about it somewhere because otherwise all eyes are on me and I'm going to get, you know, told off. So let's like do a little show, like distract from all the fact that I've not been able to do my homework again or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like that became a sort of super. So it's like these I guess what we're trying to say is there's coping mechanisms, right? Or there's skills that we don't even know that we're building.
Oh, definitely.
They're like subconscious.
I was the same with my upbringing. My dad, I think people, when they looked at my parents, my dad was always the showman. My mother is a really good storyteller and really naturally quite dry and quite funny. And we watched a lot of films growing up and a lot of horror movies, which sounds a bit weird as a child. But my mother we watch a lot of films together. And my parents would always be sharing stories, a lot of time spent together. My dad worked at his own business too. My parents had their own business too, sorry. And my dad worked a lot in sales and had worked in sales for years. So his whole thing was public speaking. So I would see him do wedding speeches that would be like, everyone would be like applauding and like, and I went crying, yeah. And my first job, if you want to call it that, was at Llangennech Rugby Club, and I'd go with him and he'd do the tannoy for the local rugby team. So he'd be on the microphone announcing the game. So it feels quite cool that I now announce the Scarlets rugby team. It kind of feels like a bit of a full circle. But I'd spend some Saturdays going down and I'd be like his little DJ and I'd put the CD in and we'd play Thin Lizzy, The Boys Are Back in Town was the entrance music for the rugby team. So anyway, so I was exposed to that public speaking-y thing my whole upbringing. So what I'm trying to say, I don't think it's a mystery that I've ended up doing the job I do because That's what I was
Yeah.
exposed to. But some people don't have that, do they?
Yeah, and then I guess when you're pushed into a position of doing a talk or a presentation, it possibly feels like, maybe you've been the one who did do a hell of a lot better than we did at school.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
you did your homework.
Yeah.
You did.
I was on time.
You were on time. You did everything that you were meant to. And so you've really invested in those skills. And so when someone says to you, oh, can you just do a quick talk? You probably feel quite affronted that it's like, I've done the work. Why do I have to now talk about it? So it can feel a little bit like, I guess, just like a weaker muscle. That perhaps we've just never taken to the gym, and we're like, oh God, where am I going to start with this? How? And then naturally we look at other people and we go, oh, it's because I'm not talented. Talent is a really loaded word.
What is talent?
I wonder, like, what's the etymology of talent? Where does that word come from?
I want to know.
Like, let's Google it quickly.
Etymology of talent.
When in doubt, etymology is my friend.
There we go.
What is it?
Shove that in a t-shirt.
No, honestly, if I feel a disconnect with a word, I'll just bury myself in etymology and go, wow, this word has come from centuries of thought. But is this going to be the same with talent?
It says Old English talente or talentan as a unit of weight from Latin talenta, weight, a sum of money, is a figurative use with biblical allusion to the parable of the talents. What?
I haven't read the Bible.
Haven't read the Bible either.
Recently.
Um,
but talent, that makes me, talente, makes me...
It's a talent of money.
Like a weight.
So I guess it's abundance, maybe.
Yeah.
About a particular weight, especially of gold, a sum of money, a talent.
That's
so if
very
you're talented, you're full of money.
It's not necessarily, it's the association with money, right? Is absolutely, like you said, abundance, which isn't necessarily just monetary, but it's like a weight.
Should we go with that?
Yeah.
Let's go with that.
That's really interesting. So it's almost like you come out the womb with a bag full of money, talent. But that, to me, smacks of an external quantifying of that, of you.
Yeah, I guess so.
Because we need to know, like, if we're weighing gold, there's an external component to that. So that's other people's, what I'm trying to say is there's other people's opinions coming into that.
Yeah.
Value, like beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right?
Absolutely.
Like, so the value is possibly in the eyes of everyone else.
Yeah, I think of it as being really, really good at something in its simplest form. That's what when I think of talented, that could be the world's, like, a world-renowned speaker. It could be someone who's, like, incredible at carpentry. It's just being really, really, really good at something. But I think to get really good at something isn't always a thing you just happen to have. You work on it for, black dans and black dans out of the womb. Black belts, black dans.
Oh, sorry. I was like, what?
Black belt. And then you get up to 10th dan, I think. I'm not sure. Black belts in karate, judo, jiu-jitsu, whatever.
I was like, what?
They spend hundreds, if not thousands of hours training on that thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So why do we just assume that when it comes to public speaking or acting or doing stories, I do think there is also an inherent thing in us which makes us naturally good storytellers sometimes. But I do think it's a craft that has either been worked on consciously or unconsciously.
Yeah. And actually, maybe that kind of natural, in inverted commas, element is the fact that it is very human to have a drive towards connecting to other people. So we're just kind of misconstruing what that is. It's like, yeah, okay, it's a drive. Like certain dogs have a prey drive or whatever. They're attracted to those fast moving things. Like we have that, but for the human skill of storytelling, like we know it's important.
Yeah.
So actually maybe we're kind of wrapping those things up together. But the one thing that I think is dangerous in this world, and I saw this when Molly May said something which was a little bit out of touch, to say the least. I can't remember. I think it was something like everyone has the same 24 hours in a day, right?
Yeah.
I get what she was going for, and we're not here to kind of discredit or kind of examine that. But what I noticed that's kind of dangerous is this absolute flood of vitriol that was commenting, you know, directly on the video, on all of her social media. It was like everyone was talking about it and just wanted to take a stab. And I think what stops people from putting themselves out there when it comes to public speaking is the fear of judgment. And so I almost wanted to say to people, you're proving all those people who stop themselves going out there and saying things right.
Absolutely.
You're proving to them that if they put themselves out there, they're going to get feasted on by the wolves.
Absolutely. And what I don't, yeah, and that's not to say that what she said wasn't out of touch and was like, I don't think what she said was sensitive or
No,
probably well
absolutely.
said
Yeah.
or a thing that people should say. I'll be honest, I think it's a bit of a stock phrase that a lot of people maybe have who are quite successful.
Yeah, it's quite
So,
a Pinterest kind of phrase.
and I'm not saying she didn't think about what she said. Of course, she's an intelligent person who is successful. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that people say things, and unless every single thing you say is perfect
all the time,
you're going to get cancelled or ruined. I don't think that's a very healthy
or
way
judged.
to...
Just simply judged. It's not healthy. And like you say with the Dan, the going through the belts in karate, there are different levels of that skill. And so, yes, with great kind of platform, comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
But actually, I think this is where we don't see the mistakes because they're judged so harshly. That's what I'm saying. Is so then when we see these people be perfect on social media, we just think that's all it takes. And so there's no room for mistakes. There's no room for us to make the mistakes or say the wrong thing or, you know, be like, oh, actually, that's probably not the way I should have phrased it. Let me kind of go away and go back. So that's what people are also fearing is like, where's the space to be a bit crap at this first?
Yeah.
Because it can't be on social media because that's so permanent.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is maybe a bit of a weird example, but I think it's quite important. Like, I was talking today on, I think it was Radio Cymru about people doing Dry January and the amount of people who are in the Gen Z category and slightly more millennial category, but young millennials who are drinking less and less. And I think it's probably to do with things like people more health conscious and there's way more things like alcohol-free beers and more accessibility in that world. But another big reason why this research claimed was that people are worried about being judged on social media. Now, I only went to uni, show my age now, aging myself, 10 years ago.
Oh God, I left uni 10 years ago.
That's not bad. And when I was in uni, yeah, we had phones and stuff, but like Facebook was just coming out. You maybe took like a picture, all of you together, once before going out, and maybe like one or two.
Yeah.
Now people have their phones in their hands all the time,
Yeah.
and at the touch of a button, you have access to 4K recording technology, which can be uploaded instantly. That is pretty mad because it's almost like people always worried about the whole surveillance thing, the Big Brother panopticon thing, that it was the government or the big men in the offices and chairs looking in on us. We're actually watching ourselves.
It's the everyman doing it now,
we're doing
isn't
it to ourselves. And like the episode of Black Mirror, A White Bear, my favourite Black Mirror episode is when there's a woman walking through the woods and everyone is just chasing her with their phones. And it's kind of become the norm now. So like you say...
It's a defence mechanism. So there was someone who... I think there was like two guys having a fight. I think this is in like Newlyweds podcast talked about this. The two guys having a fight, but they stopped, pulled out their phone and filmed each other. And that was the fight. It was almost like they were the swords. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm filming you. Then they just apparently kept going, I'm filming you. Well, I'm filming you. And it was like, okay, what are we waiting for here? We're waiting for those, make a mistake. Be a bad person.
Because that's the wolves.
Show your... that's the wolves. That's what I'm saying.
I'm calling the wolves.
I'm calling the wolves. Here you go. You're going to be fed to them. And so I remember filming my first Instagram video to be like, right, I'm going to do this stuff. I think I'm quite good at it and whatever. And I was like, right, I got to make it perfect. Got to set this up. There's like this beautiful little old ladder in the garden, these plants when I was really early, and I was wearing this vintage kimono from the back streets of Kyoto. I know how it sounds. It's terrible. But I was like, right, I curled my hair and like did my makeup perfectly and whatever, and then sat down and was like, okay, And I can't even remember what I said in this video, but I remember the feeling afterwards of being so exhausted, being like, I can't keep that up.
Wow.
I cannot keep that. I'm sorry. If you think I'm that girl, I am going to disappoint you. So eventually I just ended up being like, catch myself off guard. But a large proportion of that was, rather than thinking of the wolves, I thought of the people who might want to listen. Who, because I have aha moments that help me, and I go, thank God, like I've come along that little nugget of information. I want to share it with everyone as quickly as possible. It's not because I think I'm bright. It's because I've gone, I've noticed this thing. Let's share it with as many people as possible. Does that help you? Great. If it doesn't, don't worry about it. But I'm not going to do it for the wolves. I'm going to do it for the lambs.
Let's go with that.
I don't know what that metaphor went.
The people who actually care about you, the people who love you.
I guess like the other types of dogs who are wagging their tails.
Little
who are excited at these little kind of balls that are just... This is a terrible metaphor.
No, I get what you mean. The opposite of nasty wolves. Some wolves can be nice though. Let's go for I'm going to say llamas then. I can't think.
Scratch that. We'll just say I don't do it for the wolves. I do it for the... I do it...
No, keep it in.
Oh, bloody hell.
You mentioned
I'm so articulate. See, if I had kept up that kimono wearing, perfection, I wouldn't have been able to do that now and be deep down and be like, what an idiot. I'm not perfect. But now I'm just like, we make mistakes. It's like ums in your sentences. They are fine.
Exactly. You talk about making it look easy. Or why don't you also try and make it easy for yourself by just trying being authentic? Because that will also make
a big
it.
One.
Do you think so?
That's authentic is another loaded term, for sure. It's a big buzzword at the moment, and now there's authenticity and there's sincere, and I know the root word of sincere, which is sincere.
Ooh, what does that mean? Where does that come from?
No wax.
So right, okay.
When it came to marble statues being built, I want to say in Italy.
Yeah, Italy statues.
Fab.
Renaissance and stuff.
Something like that.
Something like that.
They would have these marble statues, and the ones that had imperfections, they'd just melt wax and kind of cover the cracks or, make it look like there wasn't any imperfections. Now, if you made a statue and you were owning it, cracks and all, you'd have a little sign that said sincere, which means
cool.
No wax.
Yeah.
Which means not only like I'm really good at this because there aren't many, it also means I'm just going to put it out there.
Ooh.
No wax. So I think that is what, for me, the closest idea of authenticity is like no wax.
Yes. That's really so sincere. It's something we should strive for.
I think so.
And I also do think, and I don't I'm not going to name any people say this is happening, but I do think there is maybe sometimes a bit of a faux authenticity thing happening sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Where people know how to play the humble card now. Where it's like, I'm so grateful, and I'm just like, and I get why people do it because I think the days of being a bit of a diva or being a bit full of yourself, I think you could get away with that back in the day in the 90s, noughties, maybe even 10 years ago. Now, because of wolves, you have to be almost quite sincere. Not everyone follows that rule, by the way, but I think people feel like if you portray yourself as a good person,
well, you're open to the masses now.
Rather
than just the studio execs or whatever. So if you're a celebrity, for example, and you put the fear into the people that you worked with and you were arrogant and you were like, yeah, I'm the best.
Yeah.
You never really heard any comeback or
Absolutely.
feedback. You weren't privy to it. Like it wasn't on your social media. But now these people, these, celebrities or speakers or whatever, always have someone comment on their post and they see it. Like, I don't think it's just like, just my staff, take care of that. I think they do see it.
Absolutely. And I think that fear, is one of the reasons why people don't want to maybe practice and maybe don't get to that point of being natural. And therefore you think things like, how do they make it look so easy? You said just now about you looked back at a video of you in your kimono and you thought that wasn't quite who I was. And you realised that and you changed it, but you looked back at it. And sometimes it can feel quite cringe to look back on things you've already done. I've got some videos on my laptop. I haven't seen this video in years. It's my first job presenting or doing anything in TV was at a
I can't wait.
was at a local TV station
Yes.
called Made in Cardiff. It then changed to be called Cardiff TV, and I was there for 5 years. It was a great gig. What I'm about to show you was my first ever. This is basically my screen test. I went to Cardiff Dog's home, and there was a dog called Seren who desperately needed a home, and I was supposed to be there as the presenter, and it was like, Sarah needs a home, and I was interviewing the woman who was working at the dog, so I'm going, who is this dog? And I was with the dog as well.
I can't wait.
And it was almost like my first time presenting on telly.
In inverted commas.
I was so scared.
Oh.
Let's see if you can see if I was scared or not. I'm going to show you the clip now.
So how long ago, just to kind of put this into perspective, how long ago was this?
This was in 2016.
2016.
So however many years ago that was. So what's that, 8 years ago?
That's nearly 10 years ago.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago.
God.
And it was me and Seren. And I'll show you a little bit now. Give me a sec.
The kind of rule was always like never work with children or animals, right? But I think they're great.
Never work with children and animals. So I'm just going to show you.
But you just had Seren was definitely the animal.
So I'm going to put it here.
Oh, brilliant.
And I'm going to show you. And hopefully
look.
if you're watching this via video, you'll be able to see it as well. Turn the volume up so you won't hear exactly what I'm saying, but you'll get to describe it.
I love
Good.
Good.
Okay, happy? Cool.
Oh, let me just
Hi,
cover
this is
her
Luke.
face.
I'm here at Dogs Trust Bridgend, and I'm joined with the lovely Seren. I'm also here with dog trainer Kim. So Kim, tell us a little bit about Seren.
Oh.
Took the mic away.
She's a 6-year-old dog.
I didn't even finish talking. I took the mic away from me.
I love how
She's a little
Seren is
cross,
like your
and as you
therapy
can see,
dog at
she's
this moment.
absolutely adorable. She loves
She's
people.
grounding me.
She's grounding
She's
you.
a bit worried by other dogs.
So
we
at this moment, I was thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to say? How do I make this interesting? Am I sitting okay? All these kind of...
6 years. So Seren's been here her life.
Oh, and also you're not miking. Who's the lady that you're with?
That's Kim.
Kim.
I don't know if she still works at Cardiff Dog
So
somewhere.
Kim's not mic'd, and you are putting yourself on the mic, but not really thinking about.
I know.
about Kim.
Mic technique is something I learned obviously later on.
It's a bit surprising.
I think I'm more nervous than Kim, which is a weird thing for the... Oh, keeping the mic there.
So again, no fault of her own, and I just think she just gets overlooked because
But yeah,
Little bit nodding.
And I don't know why.
Yeah,
because I think she's
fake interest, trying to fake it. Look at that hair.
Probably not. Are you listening at that point?
Yeah, I was trying to be engaged.
Okay. No, I think that's
So what kind of
difficult
things
when you're in
trying
that
to do to
situation, when
try
you're
and
so
promote?
nervous.
Are you-
Say again, sorry.
When you're so nervous, I think that is difficult.
Oh, yeah.
Website, we put her over social media.
I can show you one more clip, if that's okay.
Okay.
So that was me and Sarah. I'll try and see if I got an outro, because I always
But
found...
again,
Yeah, so anyone wants
oh.
to come and home this lovely dog, she'd be here waiting for you. This is Luke, thank you.
oh,
What a sign off! This is Luke. Thank you. Look at her face. She's looking like, did he just say that? Seren is saying, please adopt me. I need to get away from this man. I couldn't, look at that. Look how pleased I am.
This is Luke. Thank you. Do you think that's because they do that on the news?
Yeah,
This is da da da.
but no one told me how to do outdoors. So I just went with that.
So you went with your gut, which is brilliant. Again, we're not making fun of it. I actually don't think you look as nervous as you say.
Okay, that's good.
So you just kind of look like, I mean, the dog is like going with the ball and whatever, and it's like quite a tricky, like you're in a sunken sofa. There's like lots of other components. I think you look quite confident.
Thank you very much. That's fairly...
So I think this just goes to prove that we're crap at knowing how we come across.
Absolutely. 100%. I now have me doing the weather, or would you like to see my first time doing live?
I would like live.
Okay, let's do live, because I was really scared
Thank you
doing
very
this.
much. This feels like I'm on a game show. I would like to take the topic of live.
This is the first time I did any kind of proper live telly. It was on the
That would
crunch.
be terrifying to me.
It was scary. And I was with the wonderful Sean King.
I've done live radio before and I was awful. Zero preparation. Oh,
So that's not me, obviously.
wonderful.
That's Esme Todd, the weather presenter. That's me and Sean. And this is me the first time doing live telly on the crunch on Made in Cardiff. And I had the first time I actually properly used an earpiece as well.
Okay.
And I used auto cue quite a lot before, but in a live environment, it's a different ball game because there's so many components. This is me doing live.
Thanks very much, Esme. So at the City Hall this evening, and I'll be going later, there's
Just
a
smiling.
masquerade ball happening, all for the charity Dreams
Oh,
and
well.
Wishes.
Indeed, and Peter Carey is there entertaining himself, and here he is in action.
Oh, baby Luke.
I've got this weird posh voice going on.
You do.
I do, don't I? It's like a weird.
Were you reading off a teleprompter?
Yeah. One
That's
more.
really funny.
One last one then.
Indeed. It was quite American.
Amazing. That
Absolutely
last note.
Oh, she's
is
asking me something. Oh,
insane.
God.
My hair going brrrr, and he was doing that there.
He is incredible, and he is
joke.
performing all evening. I can't
great.
wait. I'm very excited.
Fantastic. Brilliant, that was so good. Anyway, still to come.
Anyway.
Oh.
Comedian Josh Elton.
But before the break, let's get a conundrum. So this is our last conundrum from us for this evening, and based on weather, all for Luke. So your word is nerd hut, and the clue is don't steal it.
Come on. I have no idea.
Do you know what? I can't remember
Froze.
when I wrote this one. We'll see after.
Oh.
And now,
So
There you go.
that was difficult because that was like an anagram thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then what were you supposed to just, does it say like Luke comment on this?
yeah, so I think what happens there is that you are put in an environment where you've got to say something either witty or funny. And I hadn't seen the anagram beforehand. And when you're in a live environment, to say something that's creative, funny, or interesting,
Say something funny, go!
yeah, it's quite hard to do it. But looking back at that is actually quite weird because I could tell, you know what you said about your kimono thing?
Yeah.
I could tell my accent was a little bit weirder. It was a bit more kind of formal and a bit more kind of, upright.
I
because-
think you were doing a little bit of like what I think I should do, which is exactly the same as me in the kimono. It was like, people like this, right? And then actually I was like, well, can't keep it up. And it's probably the same for you with actually building your skills. Is like, oh, I don't need that. I don't need the performative element, right? So I don't need to be like everyone else. As Oscar Wilde says, be yourself. Everyone else is already taken.
That's great. I love that. I really like that.
But I actually, again, wouldn't say, oh, he's really unconfident there. He's, really struggling, anything like that. There's a couple of things that I know how you present now.
Yeah.
So I can see the difference. But again, this is why when I'm working with clients, we record them in their first session and then typically we'll record them towards the end. And sometimes the difference is super dramatic. Sometimes it's really subtle. It's just a little kind of 1% cumulative increase. Actually, a lot of the changes are going on inside. So you're remembering you in that feeling of like, oh God, what am I going to say next? All of that sort of thing. Loads of those are internal.
Yeah,
And now you wouldn't even think about it.
absolutely.
You'd be relaxed.
And exactly. And in terms of if someone is listening to this or watching this and thinking, I want to be more natural, I guess the hard answer is it's going to take maybe a long time.
Yeah,
And it could be 100 reasons why that is happening, why you don't necessarily feel or you don't think you look that natural.
Yeah.
There's probably some really common ones which you've seen, but what would you say if you were to say to someone who says, my main thing is not looking natural, other people do it so easy? Any words of advice there for
Yeah.
that stuff?
So I think the number one thing is if you want it to be natural, this whole environment has to become more natural.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason why you're not natural is because this is an alien environment. So you're responding accordingly. If it's not, also, if you're recording something for social media, it is not natural to not speak to someone and have a camera. That's not natural. We've only been doing that for what? Since the 1940s, 30s?
What, broadcasting?
Yeah.
Radio was, I'm going to get this wrong. It was definitely the start of the 1900s, 1920s, 1930s.
Was radio.
And then telly was, I should know this. I don't know.
I feel like it was World War II was colour TV, right? After
No,
World War
I could
II.
it was after World War II, but
You should know this as a history of boffin.
I don't know this. I know radio was
It's
still
been
quite
recent.
primitive.
Yeah.
The last 100 years.
It
yeah.
was literally the last 100 years, we think, on this planet. But that's what I mean. It isn't natural. So people are like, oh God, I just don't look very natural. It's not. So all you have,
Yeah,
so
sure.
what you then have to do is make the unfamiliar familiar
Certainly.
for that natural
Like,
edge.
one nice example was Louis, who's a business owner of Clear for Men. He's got a skincare brand, and we actually did some work with him recently. And he said one way he got better at feeling more natural was he just went live on TikTok. Now, to be fair to Louis, he jumped in at the deep end. I'm not saying for everyone to jump on live on TikTok, because that can be quite an unforgiving place where a lot of wolves maybe live. But Louis just went, I'm going to do it.
He actually said, I'm going to do this for the next, I think it was something like, I'm going to do it every day, all day for 10 days.
And guess what? If you do something enough, you're going to get better at it.
Absolutely.
You may pick up maybe some bad habits here and there that some people think is useful or not. But generally speaking, in terms of feeling comfortable, that's just going to happen with time, which sounds like a hard answer to give. But unfortunately, there's not. There are some apps and things which can maybe give the illusion that you're doing a better job. But when it comes down to actually looking and feeling natural, that's going to take a bit of time to get used to.
It's going to take time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm just thinking about as well, Jay Shetty, who has, I think it's the #1 wellness podcast in the world. And he's a huge speaker, podcaster, goes on TV all the time, has a massive YouTube channel.
Yeah.
He went to LAMDA, which is one of the performing arts schools, when he was a child. He went there for 9 years, 3 times a week for 2 hours a session. And he did things like, okay, here's a pile of books. You've got to just flick to a random page and talk about that page for 15 minutes. So he's doing exercises like that all the time. So when people go, oh, they're just talented, that is 9 years of 3 times a week, 2 hours. So that's 6 hours a week. So actors get together and rehearse for, 10 till 6 every day for 4 weeks straight. Perhaps sometimes 6 weeks. It's not just going to happen overnight. You have to kind of get the hours under your belt. What you called it? Pilot hours, which I loved.
Yeah, I know that one of the ways the pilots measure how successful or how talented or how able they are is to measure how many pilot hours they've done. So that's just another example as to how the work you put in will equate to you being good or talented at that thing. The same thing in stand-up comedy. One measures how experienced they are in how many gigs they've got under their belt.
Yeah.
Or I am a stand-up comedian, I've done 100 gigs.
I've
done 1,000 gigs.
I feel like I've heard this too, and it's something like you cannot call yourself a stand-up comedian until you've done that number.
Yeah, I've heard a couple of different versions.
It's a little
of
bit
it.
of a rite of passage.
I've heard 100 gigs, I also heard 1,000 gigs. Yeah. I don't know the right number is.
Yeah.
But all I
It's a
know
lot.
is that it's a high number.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes sense because trying to evoke laughter is quite a hard skill to do. Flying a plane is quite a hard thing to do. Public speaking and looking talented, inverted commas, is a hard thing to do. Like I remember once someone who measured how many videos they'd done in local TV, and it was something like 2,000 videos.
Wow.
And
yeah.
when you do it 2,000 times, you're
Yeah.
going to get naturally pretty okay at it.
Yeah.
So in terms of any kind of some takeaway messages from this, it may not be the answer you want. But I think the first thing is realizing that no one is born good at this stuff. I think if you realize that, that's not to say if everything's been stacked against you your whole life to not be a good speaker, that doesn't mean you can't get there. It just means maybe you had to have joined the party a bit later, or maybe a bit more difficult. Doesn't mean it's impossible.
Yeah.
But I think
absolutely
recognizing that some people are just ahead of you in certain places and you have certain things in your upbringing which can put you in a better position, but doesn't mean it's impossible.
Yeah. Comparing yourself to people who are at your level of pilot hours, I think is useful. Like if I'm comparing myself to someone like Vin Jiang, who's public speaking coach, that's awful. He's been doing it for years. Or there's other people who, have been doing this for 20 years. They've been lecturing at Stanford and things like that. And I'm going, oh God, I'm awful. Well, no, I've just come through this stuff from a different angle. And so I'd compare myself maybe to colleagues or peers, who've had the same level of education, or who we've kind of cut our teeth on the same stuff, or, I wouldn't reach too high and go, oh, well, I'm not like them yet,
Definitely. But it's worth bearing in mind.
The last thing I would suggest is we constantly underestimate ourselves and the impact that we're already having. Like you on the screen there already looked competent and confident. We underestimate ourselves because of that internal feeling and because we've got this idea in our mind of who we want to be like or what we want to be like. So there's a great exercise that Nick Redman, who's a voice teacher and podcaster, uses, which you text someone that you trust and you say, what do you like about my voice? And how does my voice make you feel? Now, the impact or the feedback that you'll get from this will be incredible. It's so unexpected. And so you'll be ticking a lot of boxes without even pushing or efforting in those departments. So I'm going to ask you, actually, straight away.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to do this little game. So I'm going to put you on the spot now. What do you like about my voice?
You have a really easy voice to listen to.
Ah.
Yeah.
And how does my voice make you feel?
Depends what you're saying and how you're saying it.
Typically, across the board.
I would say your voice makes me feel like I'm listened to. So when you speak to me, it sounds like you're quite present and you give it your all. You don't. It's not like you can't wait to get away from me. I'm not saying that happens a lot, but you are quite present and you are there, which I think is quite a cool commodity at the minute. Yeah.
That's really nice. Do you want to know what I think?
I would love to know what you think. What do you like about my voice?
I like that even though you've been living in Cardiff for a long time, you still sound like you're from Llanelli.
That's cool. The Llanelli echo isn't as strong though, but it is still definitely there. Thank you very much. It's a lovely compliment. And how does my voice make you feel?
Supported. And like I can fail, actually. I think you've got a very good voice for everything's going to be fine. It's quite a lovely task, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a really lovely
like
exercise.
That.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
Because actually a lot of those things like being present, I'd put a lot of effort into that. But sometimes we can just give that off and we're not having to put in loads of effort.
Definitely.
Oh, I love that.
That's
How do
really
they make
nice.
it look so easy? You might already be making it look really easy to other people.
Absolutely.